I can't explain Robyn Dixon's relationship with Juan Dixon.
You know who else can't? Robyn and Juan.
Yeah, exactly.
So don't feel bad. Hi, this is Caitlin.
And this is Sharon.
And welcome to Real Housewives on Real Housewives, where we unravel housewives' story threads and keep the tea flowing.
So chic.
Hold on to your bubbly.
In today's episode, we're digging into Robyn Dixon from Real Housewives of Potomac Season 7. So Robyn is one of the original Potomac housewives. She's 44 years old. She's married to Juan Dixon, and they have 2 kids together. And she co-hosts the Reasonably Shady podcast with Giselle.
Oh, so she has a podcast and we have a podcast. So, we're practically friends, I think.
We work in this. We're in the same.
We're in the same industry.
Yeah,
we nod at each other at the podcast conventions. Is that a thing? It should be a thing. All right. So our 2 verses are Robyn versus relationship haters and Robyn versus Wendy. So Robyn and Juan are high school sweethearts. They dated. They got married. They got divorced due to basically infidelity. But they always stayed close. And what was interesting is they've always lived together to co-parent. So even in the early days of Real Housewives of Potomac, Juan has always been in the same house as Robyn with their kids.
And I didn't know that because this is my first season of Potomac. Yeah. I mean, now they're living together.
Exactly.
Age,
and initially I was like, well, maybe they're just those people who are better as friends. But there always has kind of been a well, maybe they should be together. You know, Giselle would ask that from time to time. And I think a lot of the other housewives were often kind of like, well, you guys live together. You're really good friends. Why aren't you together? So, I mean, ultimately that came to be true. They got engaged on the show in 2019. And then they decided to get remarried. So there's a lot of little things that kind of go into this. Let's talk first about, they're going to do the wedding and we run up against the issue of the prenup. So let's talk a little bit about that. Do you have a prenup?
No.
You laughed so long. I thought maybe I didn't know you for a minute.
You're like, oh, of course I have a prenup.
I was like, oh my gosh, she's going to pull out some weird answer.
Yeah, I got engaged at 21, married at 23.
Exactly. Yep, no prenup here either. But Robyn and Juan, I guess, had a prenup the first time they got married because he was a major NBA. So he's a basketball player, I guess we should say that. So he was in the NBA, made a bunch of money. So they initially did get married and have a prenup in place. So Robyn brings it up this time, maybe we should talk about it again. She goes to talk to a lawyer and actually talks about maybe we should put in an infidelity clause.
Well, because now she is actually potentially worth more with her podcast. That's almost what I understood from watching it.
I think so. So Juan kind of made it sound like no, but at the same time, now they said it was Juan's credit was the whole reason why his name was not currently on the house, but also they aren't married. I do think maybe Robyn makes more because she's got the show money, she's got the podcast, and then she has that hat line.
The fashion line, yeah.
So I think between her businesses, it's possible, or I think her big thing was she just didn't want him to be able to touch the businesses if something went wrong. Those were her businesses.
Oh, that makes sense.
And so I think that's kind of where she was coming from. So at the one I think he kind of says, you need to do what you need to do. But he doesn't seem super on board with it.
I mean, can you, I guess if he was the one who was cheating before, he should understand where she's coming from.
I think so. And also the thing that gets me, because initially I was like, well, I think anybody would pause about it and feel maybe a little bit like, oh, okay, that's a little weird. But he asked her for one the first time around.
Oh.
So when he was the NBA star and he was making all the money, they had a prenup. Now their prenup ended up not mattering because they had a bunch of their money stolen by a friend of theirs. And so they ended up with no money and living in a really small little house and stuff. So the first divorce, there wasn't really anything to fight over.
Yeah.
But I think Robyn's right. I mean, they have a history of having a divorce. They have a history of infidelity. And so why not protect your assets? Yeah. And also just again, if you want to stay friends, say for some, I'm not saying it should, but say if it didn't work out, they've gone so far in their life to stay friends, to do the right thing for the kids. Then I think you might as well have it worked out in advance. I think
turn nasty.
I'm kind of more pro them than I used to be because I think
that's what happens when you get old. It's not all about love anymore.
It really makes a lot of sense. I don't care if you love the person. Like, do the right thing with the paperwork.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing is, so the Baltimore Brew article came out. I don't think it was their article necessarily, but the news came out that Juan Dixon may be out as Coppin State University's men's basketball coach. So there was a former player who sued him and the university over an alleged sexual assault and blackmail by an assistant coach. So not by Juan. Mm-hmm. And I think, I'm guessing, like I'm here, but I think it was just the fact that he and the school maybe should have done more to stop it. And that's why he got sued. But so he's lost his job now. So it does sort of feel like, well, maybe it wasn't a bad idea to have some of this in place, because it just sort of proves you don't know what's going to happen in life. Mm-hmm. So Robyn said at the reunion that they did get a prenup. It's pretty much 50-50, but Juan wouldn't get ownership of her business. They did not have an infidelity clause after all. Mm-hmm. What she said, which was sort of interesting, it was on Bravo's website, but she said, I had to do some thinking because, to be honest, neither one of us would be who we are and where we are without the other. So regardless of how many years from now, we both can say that we were very instrumental in each other's careers and lives.
I like that. And
I like that a lot.
There's a lot of truth to that. I mean, because they've been together since high school.
Exactly. So I think the 50-50 split was good. And I think she just wanted her businesses separated from it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's fair, because also Giselle has a stake in the podcast too. So it's like she's also protecting her friend.
Yeah. What do you think about infidelity clauses just in general?
That feels a little bit more like bad luck to me, putting one in.
It feels a little...
It kind of feels like you're like...
I don't know.
That, it's funny because the other thing I feel like is very like, whatever. I think it makes perfect sense. And I don't know. In this case, I guess because you have a history of being married and having had that happen, it makes a little more sense. For other people to do it, it feels a little punitive, I guess.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, I'm not sure it should matter why the relationship is dissolved. You just work out the assets. I'm not sure you need to be like punishing someone in addition to that.
Right. I agree.
So then this season, the other big question is like, when are you getting married? When are you getting married? When are you getting married? Everybody asks. So they ultimately, at the very end of the season, like kind of after the show had wrapped, they're like 2 months later screen, that they got married in Maryland, and it was just Robyn, Juan, the boys, and her parents. What do we think of her wedding?
So I get it, because they were married before. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people for their second wedding.
Oh, absolutely.
Anyway, and then the fact that it's the second wedding to the same person.
You did that.
And for them, they've spent their lives together. So for them, it's probably just more of a... just a commemoration.
Exactly. So. I think they probably should have just said all along that they wanted to do something just them. I feel like they were kind of stringing the other castmates along about whether they would be invited to a wedding. And again, like, they did have the wedding before, and they probably didn't want all the drama of everybody being there. But I think I think Robyn was shady, not reasonably shady, but I think she was sort of shady about the wedding. I think they knew they were going to do it alone by themselves, but they were kind of like, we'll see. Maybe we'll do this. Maybe we won't. Like, I think she should have just said, guys, lay off me. Yeah. It's my second wedding, and I'm going to do it on our terms, and we're going to do it when we want with the kids. And that's it. Like, but I don't understand why. I don't understand why she drug that story out.
Because then it seemed like Karen, and I'm not sure maybe the other ladies, can't remember, but she kind of used that as oh, look, they're not in a good place. Yes. They're never going to actually get married. And like kind of like she enjoyed poking at it.
Yes, I think so. Kind of like there was like, well, it took them a long time to get re-engaged. Now look, it took them so long to get married.
Like she said, oh, that marriage is never going to, or that wedding's never going to happen.
Yeah. Well, and maybe because Karen was really worried about that woman that looked just like Karen, which we talk about on Karen's podcast. So go back and listen to that. But Karen kind of hints that maybe Juan has a woman on the side who looks just like Karen.
Yeah.
So watch out for Karen.
She thinks Juan has like a thing for her.
He's got his eye on Karen. Okay, so speaking of more shadiness. So after the season 7 finale, Robyn goes on Watch What Happens Live, and Andy Cohen talked to her about her choice to stay, what they were saying was silent, about Juan cheating during the pandemic. So we can talk a little bit about that, but he kind of Andy accused Robyn of like withholding things. And he was said, like, you're on a reality show. Like your life, the deal of the contract is that your life is up for everybody to see. You shouldn't be holding crucial moments of it out. Like other people don't get to do that.
Yeah.
And why are you doing that? And then I think like the cherry on top is that she put it behind a paywall on her podcast.
Uh-huh.
That's where it gets me. It's one thing to say like, well, maybe I just kind of hoped this news would never come out.
Yes.
It's another thing to go, well, now that it did, I'm going to charge you for it.
Mm-hmm.
Seemed very Jen Shaw.
I didn't like that either because, I think it's one thing if like, well, the whole season she was just trying to hide it or she just didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
But then when it's out, just be like, okay, I'm part of the show. This is part of the show. Because you're right. Other people don't necessarily, if it happens during the season, it just, people see what happened.
Yeah. And you're getting paid to be on the show. So it's not like you aren't getting compensated.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think that's kind of like not reasonable, definitely shady. One of the things that she said is that it wasn't an issue at the moment when we were filming. And I was like focused on the wedding. But again, it's like I think she was just.
But the wedding was just 4 people.
Yeah. And you weren't focused on it.
I mean, God, I don't know.
Yeah.
I've never been in her shoes, but it seems like it would always be a thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. But maybe not. I guess you have to move on at some point.
Yeah. But I guess if they've dealt with it before, maybe they've dealt with it before. So what happened is sort of shady. But so this woman came forward and said that she and Juan, she claimed that they dated during COVID and that they went to this hotel and she had a receipt that he'd paid for. Now, there was like a discussion as to whether Juan's friend had met her and she'd forgotten her credit card or the friend had forgotten his credit. I don't know. Like, so what Robyn said was that it was handled. They worked through it. She kind of said that Juan was like an idiot who talked to someone on Instagram and then made dumb choices.
Yeah.
I don't think it bodes super well. What do you think?
It's kind of, I don't know how you talk yourself out of the thing for a hotel room. I feel like that's one of those things like, like the dingo ate my baby. Yeah. And it's like, no one believed, but that really was true. Exactly. So that's how I feel about this. I'm like, it doesn't sound true at all.
I almost feel like if she'd said like, because you can kind of tell when someone you're like close with is maybe telling you the truth or not. But I think if she'd said, look, he was just so honest about it, I really believed it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't sound like it because, again, you were kind of trying to hide it. You didn't want it to come out because it makes you guys look bad. Yeah. And I don't know. Again, it's the history. It's like if that had happened with one of our husbands without a history of anything, I guess you could just say, well, they're just really stupid.
Yeah.
But you get one time to be stupid, I kind of think. And it's like Juan's used up his stupid.
I agree with that. But then on the other hand, now the way you said it before, like because to us on the outside, it's like, that's bad. But because she does know him.
Yeah, that's true.
Maybe it's like, you guys don't actually know the real Juan or something like that. But that is being stupid more than once. You should be on your best behavior.
I mean, I feel like Robyn is really smart. Like she's really no nonsense. So there's a part of me that wants to believe that she is correct. And ultimately, especially in the earlier seasons, like we barely saw Juan and she interact this season. But in the earlier seasons, I genuinely liked them together. So like I really was pulling for them. And like I cried when they got engaged again. I was like, oh, this is just so sweet. Like I really liked it. But I don't like, I guess what I'm trying to ask without asking, do you think that Robyn and Juan can make it work this second time around?
Okay. Before I answer that, I thought of something else.
Okay. Good, because I need more time to think about my answer.
So maybe, even if she did think it were true, she might not want to say it, because then people say, if she acknowledges it, then people are saying, why are you getting together when he cheated on you?
That's a good point.
And then she has to kind of answer all those questions. Where she could be like, nothing happened.
Yeah.
Whether she believes it or not.
That's a really good point. Because ultimately, it's their relationship. Like, you get to decide. If you're okay with dealing with it, other people really should lay off.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to have that moral code over somebody.
Exactly. And I think that they can make it because they know each other. And it sounds like their relationship is, maybe it's different than a lot of other people's. And they can work through that, apparently. So,
and I do have to think, like, kind of from a personal experience, like, so David and I were high school sweethearts. And that's a long time to be together.
Yeah.
And you do grow and you do change, and having kids really changes you. Like we both came out of having kids as very different people, I think. And it's taken work to make the relationship work under those new circumstances. Like it's not easy, and it's, there's been times it's been hard. And so sometimes I think too, it's like they were together so young, and maybe Juan was young and dumb and stupid then. And he's different now, and she knows him more. But he'll always be under that stigma of the person who cheated.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's not fair either.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But then there's also the thing, they were high school sweethearts. I don't know how you get yourself out of that relationship after that many years. Like,
I mean, that's true too.
Because they do care about each other.
Intertwined. Yeah.
It's like that's all she's ever known.
That's true too. Yeah. And it felt like neither of them really dated a lot during the divorce. I don't know the entire story there, but yeah. I guess, well, one thing that I thought was interesting was Andy asked Robyn if she was tired of publicly defending him all the time.
I think that's a good question.
I think it's a good question.
And it made me feel bad for her.
Yeah. Because asking the question that way felt like he was sort of saying, and I know he wasn't, but it sort of felt like he was saying, maybe you're making a dumb choice.
Oh, really? See, I took it to mean like the audience, we're all jerks. Because just constantly having to defend.
Interesting.
It's interesting.
Yeah. See, I took it like he was being like you. But then I'm always worried people are judging my choices. There you go. It's a personal problem. All right, who wins?
I guess Robyn's married, so.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, ultimately, they came out of it married.
Yeah.
I was flipping through their wedding photos. They look really happy. I mean, I'm good. Pulling for them.
Yeah, I mean, shouldn't we always pull for a couple?
I think so.
Be happy
always vote for love.
Yeah, always.
You have to jump in on one side. That's the side to jump in.
Yeah.
All right. Well, less love in this next one. So Robyn versus Wendy, or I'm going to refer to them as oil and water, because that's what Robyn said at the winery. So, it's really funny because the overlying thing here is that they just don't mesh well this season.
Yeah.
They're oil and water. And the funny thing was, for both of us, we weren't entirely sure why.
Yeah.
We had to really unravel this guy.
We went back and we watched multiple scenes multiple times, and I had to type word by word what happened.
We're like, is it that? No. Maybe it was last season. No. It's like we just could not, like, understand. Like, we kept going, well, I don't know. They're just mad at each other. It's kind of like your kids. Like, I don't know why they're mad at each other. They just are. So let's start with Ashley's dance party lesson.
Yeah. So to sum that up, and this is one of the confusing ones.
Fingers crossed we can do it.
Robyn says that Wendy is making it look like Robyn and Giselle are speaking badly about me and the cancer thing. So Robyn thinks Wendy's saying, oh, these two are saying she doesn't have cancer or you don't have cancer, when the whole group had spoken about it.
Yeah. And to back up just a tiny bit, so Mia had posted on her Instagram, I don't know if it was just at the beginning of the season or before the season, that she had some suspicious bumps and lumps and like went to get them looked at. Then they sent her to Johns Hopkins, but she kind of left it at that. So she sort of said, well, it could be cancer. And the women were going back and forth about like, well, was it okay that she said cancer, but then it turned out not to be cancer? And I really disagree with the women on that.
I do too.
Yeah. I don't understand why this is such a problem.
Don't you go, oh my God, I hope it. Yes. And then you find out it's not, and you're like, oh.
And you obsess over it. I mean, I've had a couple cancer scares, like with my thyroid and stuff. And every time I was sure I had it, and then that was it. Like, and I remember being completely and utterly 100% self-involved, worrying about that. Yeah. So obviously Mia probably was. And I think it's okay to say, I mean, Robyn later says, well, maybe you should have put a follow-up if you're going to put it out on social media.
It sounds...
And okay. But again, sometimes when things just get better, you're just like, oh, thank goodness it's better.
But this is kind of going back to like how they said about Robyn, how you're being paid to put your life on TV.
Yeah.
And here Mia is doing it, and she's getting
like, don't do
in trouble for it.
Yeah, that's true.
But she also didn't necessarily get resolved. It sounds like she didn't quite know. So maybe she should have said, like, yes, it's not cancer. But that doesn't mean it's not something serious. Right. And maybe she didn't want to just be like, it's nothing.
Yeah, I felt like it was an unfair argument because she spent the whole season going, well, we don't know. We ruled this out. We're testing for this. We don't know. She just didn't know, guys. It's like they wanted an answer she didn't have, and that's not fair.
And she probably wants the answer more than anyone, exactly.
So when they're at the lesson, Giselle kind of has to apologize to Mia because she's the one who really took her to task. And I think that the big start of it is that Robyn gets lumped in with Giselle because they're kind of friends. They're the Green-Eyed Bandits. So I think part of the problem is that Wendy, when she kind of goes to say Giselle, I think it's that she throws Robyn in there. Like she lumps her in without even thinking about it. And so Robyn's annoyed because she's getting thrown under the bus too when everyone was kind of talking about, well, was Mia's cancer thing okay? Yeah. What happens, though, is it kind of turns into this back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And Robyn stands up because she kind of says something. What was it, stand on your toes or something?
Stand
on
all
toes,
5 toes. 10 toes. Or, I don't remember.
Toes, and we were like, how else do you stand?
Yeah. I don't know.
But anyway, she gets on her toes. Yeah. And she does get real aggressive with Wendy. And like she's kind of heading toward her.
Okay,
now,
but see, I don't know because they're like Charisse put her. I just kind of think Charisse was like, okay, don't fight. I don't think she was like trying to physically.
And I think, like you said, sometimes when someone's kind of like in their own bubble of whatever, you're kind of trying to get their attention, so you kind of like tap them or kind of like, dude, sit down.
Yeah, like when your husband's being too loud, then you're like. Sure.
Exactly. I think that's what it was. I don't think
Thomas is never too loud.
Yeah. You don't have to hold him back. But yeah, I don't think Charisse held Robyn back, which they kind of argue about later.
That is like a huge exaggeration.
Exactly. The one weird thing with Wendy, though, is that she does kind of say, well, I gave Mia the benefit of the doubt because I had a friend with cancer. But then later on a hot mic, Wendy gets caught saying that Mia is lying. So again, everybody does kind of think that she's lying, whether that's fair or not. It seems to be kind of a general consensus. And Robyn does get blamed when, again, she actually was the one who was kind of trying to figure it out a little bit more. She's kind of like the one searching for the truth this season.
Yeah.
Because Robyn does that both with Candace and Chris and kind of says like, hey, what happened? Let's talk this out. And then she kind of does it with Mia too. Like she says like, let's go have lunch and I'll give you a chance to explain it. So I do feel like Robyn's really kind of trying to be reasonable. And not shady. But she ends up kind of getting lumped into shady.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the other part that comes with that, which is Family Fun Day, which turns out to not maybe be so fun. I don't know.
It looks like a party that I planned.
It looks like a party that we planned. Yeah. It looks like our 4th of July or something. But actually ours are way more fun. We have like fireworks above.
Which I don't expect much more than what she did.
No, I wouldn't either.
There was food.
Exactly.
There was like a ball to play with for the kids.
She brought all those sacks for everybody to jump in, which looked miserable. So the big issue with Family Fun Day is that Robyn goes around and she says to Mia, I haven't met your kid. Do you want to get together? When's your spring break? And she's kind of like pulling everyone else on when spring breaks are with the kids. She gets to Wendy and she's like, Charisse is like, well, are you going to invite Wendy?
Yeah, because they're all sitting there together.
I mean, everybody's right there. She's like, no. I mean, which was a little harsh.
It was pretty rushed. Harsh, yeah.
It was like, this is Family Fun Day. This isn't like...
This is not a fun day.
And then Wendy's kind of like, okay, so when you bring up the kids, that's where I draw a line.
Yeah.
Like, you're now not being cool because you're being mean to the children, not just being mean to each other women. Yeah. I mean, I think Robyn was wrong.
Well, Robyn tries to come up with a solution.
It's not a good one.
It's not a good solution. She says maybe... Candace can bring Wendy's
Auntie
kids.
Candace can fulfill an auntie role.
Which, are Candace and Wendy like good friends? Or?
I don't think so. I think Candace just didn't have a kid to bring. I mean, seriously, I think she was like, what? Because then when Wendy says no, which, okay, as a parent, what would you say? I would say probably no.
Yeah,
I'm not sure I want to send my kids to a Real Housewives event.
Where someone hates me?
With Candace. I mean, I guess I just feel like if you don't want my kids, you don't want me, you don't want my kid. I mean, I guess I wouldn't even bother.
My kids can have fun somewhere else.
Yeah, it's like, why bring the drama? But then Robyn's like, oh, see, I told you it's not about the kids. Yeah. And again, that's the pettiest argument this season.
Yeah.
Maybe the other thing I kind of understand that they sort of had their issues, but this I don't get. And I still feel like every issue just stems from the fact that Wendy kind of lumped Robyn in with Giselle. And I get that, but maybe just say, hey, remember, we're 2 different people.
Yeah.
And let it go.
Yeah.
I don't know. Who won that?
Wendy.
I think Wendy, too.
Because Robyn looked super weird about it.
Yeah.
Which makes me sad, because I love Robyn.
I do, too. But she kind of made a mountain weird. I'm like,
can you not do that, Robyn?
Yeah.
Don't do that.
She just didn't need to do anything.
Yeah.
She just made every part of it worse for no reason.
I think it would have been better if she just said, are you going to invite her? No. That was totally harsh, but just left it there.
Yeah. It was almost the trying to come up with a solution was kind of a trick.
More insulting almost.
Yeah. Because then it just reminded her.
Yeah. You can't come.
Yeah. You're not allowed to have any fun.
Yeah. Tell your kids to be here at 11. Exactly. You have to stay 100 feet away.
It's like at Vanderpump Rules, they had to have the other women like 100 feet away, and they had to get like a trailer and put them off away from the reunion site. It's like that. So they could have had Wendy in a trailer watching Family Fun Day on a TV. See, Bravo had a situation for that already planned, and they didn't even use it. So sad. Well, that's kind of our wrap up on Robyn this season. All right. Well, remember, housewives bring the drama,
but we bring the receipts.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit the subscribe button. If you'd like to help support us, please share it with others and leave a rating and review. Also, visit us on Instagram and Twitter, both at RH_on_RH for fun pictures and polls, or email us at rhonrhpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks again, and remember to stay out of the shade.